Hello and welcome to Indie Encounter. My name is Sandra Laraine Coleman. The mission of our show is to give independent performers and artists access to as wide an audience as possible, and to give you, our viewers, a window into their art, their artistic process, and why they have chosen their particular avenue to connect with the world. All art is about communication and connection. Let's meet today's indie guest, poet, writer, and performance artist, K Toney. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show, AK.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Oh, I appreciate you being here because it's been a minute. We've been trying to connect and get you to the show.
I do understand.
You are here, and I'm so thankful.
It's great that you recognize independent artists. You know, a lot of independent artists get busy, but they're not as well known as a lot of other people. But I really appreciate being here.
Oh, well, thank you, and I'm so glad you came by. And my first question for you is, reading is poetry. What is that all about?
Well, Reading is Poetry is a literacy organization that I've started. Mm-hmm. I founded it. We were founded in 2005.
Okay.
And during that time, before I had decided to endeavor into that, I took on a student of mine. I had a student. He was about 45 years old, and he was deaf in one ear.
Wow.
And he came to one of the shows that we had at Fifth Street Dix over in Leimert Park back in the days when Irma Kent took over. And he saw what I was doing as a poet, and he wanted to learn how to write poetry, and he wanted to be in depth with it. And he wanted to know all the details, the tools, the rules, the forms. So I told him I would give him a workshop, a private workshop. And I gave him a private workshop. And he said, "What do you call your workshop?" And I said, "I don't know, reading is poetry," you know. But I did that, and afterwards, he taught me how to do layout, and we started developing books for students that I had started teaching in 2005. And we did that practically for free. And then one day I went to a conference, not a conference, but a roundtable that happens like every 3 months or every 2 months with poets and writers. And that's an organization, a nonprofit organization that's nationwide. And if you ever heard of Poets and Writers magazine,
Yes.
They're the same people. They're affiliated with that. And I went to one of their roundtables and I talked, and I left them one of my handmade packages. And they hooked me up with my first client, and my first client was with a charter school, middle school students, and I was 60 students at the time, and we did a project with the La Brea Tar Pits and the Natural History Museum. Actually, they were clients of mine twofold, so they were first time client, second time client, and then from then on I did workshops with other organizations and schools.
Wow, congratulations on that.
What we do is, thanks. We don't do anything really that special, except one of the things that we do is like we say we're proud advocates of poetic license. And one of our themes, our mottos is, you know, the actual breathing, living thing that makes it work is read to write, then write your story.
Wow.
So what we use is standardized forms of poetry, California Standard or Commons, core standards, standardized forms of poetry to teach the kids how to read and write. But we don't discourage misspellings, which is poetic license is a tool to use to say for instance, spelling cat, K-A-T instead of C-A-T, or saying could by abbreviating it C-D, or would, W-D, you know, anything of that nature. And it really helps in the creativity. It helps in developing the voice and also telling their story in a unique way.
Right, right. So from that one person who asked you to help them,
Right.
it birthed a whole project for you.
Well, he told me, he encouraged me, being that he was my first student, he encouraged me to sell workshops and teach at the different schools and different organizations. And from there on, I did that. Since then, you know, we created our website, which is at readingaspoetry.com.
Okay.
We've got a Twitter account.
Right.
Of course, you know, we tweet. You know, but
technologically
yeah,
savvy.
You know, technologically savvy. But one of the things that we do that's very important is that we keep poetry alive. So we have a show that's dedicated to spoken word and reviewing, you know, dedicated to reviewing spoken word books and spoken word CDs and books. So we get a plethora of books and CDs coming our way all the time. And by the way, we do that to keep poetry alive,
Right.
to make it more interesting.
Right.
And it's not just about reading; it's about listening.
Right.
Some people don't get a chance to experience the medium of poetry. You know, they're like, "What is poetry?"
Right.
It sounds like it's going to be boring, you know.
Right.
But
Or
try
hard.
to make, or hard. We try to
Yeah.
keep it vibrant and keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, would you suggest, because I know there are a lot of people out there that think because they put two lines together and they rhyme that they're a poet. And I've been told that you should always go to workshops, you should read poetry, you should study poetry. So what do you suggest for people who maybe don't know that much about it and they would like to experience it? What would you suggest for those people?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would suggest pick up a popular poet that you've heard of, then search on afterwards by looking for poets that you haven't heard of or something that might be to your liking and your taste. As far as everybody has their own aesthetic,
Right.
which is to define beauty. So beauty could be anything. It could be slang terminology. It could be high language, high speech. It could be simple language. And I would read that, read those artists or read that poet, that author, and then I would look up as much as I can about that author, and I would go out and find that author if they have a book signing, or look them up on the internet. Right now we live in the 21st century, and that's one of the very things that I'm glad that you brought me here to talk about, and that's what we're doing right now. We're doing 21st century things right now, being on the internet and the mass media and the social media. Today, we have to be in tune with that. So when I think about somebody getting into it, that's one of the first things they should do. They should read, just as you suggested, but not just read.
Right.
You know, find someone you like and read as much as you can about them.
Right.
After you read as much as you can about them, go out and seek them. But if you can't find them and seek them, the next best thing is to go to a poetry reading. Find a local poetry reading in your area and go to it and experience, and then figure out whether you want to write your feelings out.
Right. Because it's a whole different issue when you're sitting in the audience
Exactly.
than when you're standing on stage.
We also need a reference on how to say things and what to say, and the inflections that we give, or the reflections that we give, or the reflection that we want to reflect.
Right. And that's very important because, again, sitting in the audience is totally different from standing on stage, and then it's one of the most honest things.
Oh, definitely.
That I think, art forms that I think is out there. And what would you suggest for, I know you have the Reading as Poetry program, but like a young artist just starting out, what kind of advice would you give them so they could get to that K Toney level of success?
Well, well, the first thing I would suggest, like I said, reading is the key. I guess that's why we call it Reading as Poetry.
Right.
it's imperative that we get our truths out.
Right.
An artist turned around, artist mentor of mine once told me this, and this is very significant. Your deepest, darkest secret is the greatest masterpiece. And his name is K Mason. To say that means we have to deal with what is now. A hippie once said, you know, when a problem or a situation occurs, don't ask why, just deal with what is now.
Right.
Deal with it in the present time and fix it and handle it.
Right.
What I find is with poetry, if you really want to write some real good poetry, you're going to say something that you never told anybody else.
Right.
And how you say that is very significant on how it's going to affect the next person.
Right.
Because the next person might be going through that same problem, like you said, being in the audience. I can recall I did a poem, and I did this poem, it was called What If I Had a Jones for a Man? And no, I'm not gay, I'm straight, I'm heterosexual, but if I did, would you accept me?
Right.
If I had on pumps and I was walking down the street, would you accept me?
Right.
There was a person in the audience hearing this poem, and they were doing this. So that let me know I struck a nerve. I did my job, but at the same moment and same time, it is for him to do this, or whoever did this, it is up to them now to face the fact of why you don't like it, or why is it you have a situation with it. So you need to write these feelings out.
Right.
Poetry is a healing agent, as Kamal Daoud would say.
Exactly.
And he's one of the original members of the Watch Prophets, not Watch Prophets, the Watch Writers Workshop from 1965.
Right.
So we have to understand that. Not only was he one of the original members, he was probably one of the youngest members. And we don't tend to look at that with him being an elder right now.
Right. Right. And so tell us a little bit about the World Stage, because I know you're affiliated with the World Stage and the writing workshops they have there for writers.
Right. The World Stage was founded by Kamal Daoud and Billy Higgins. Kamal Daoud's from the Watch Writers Workshop. Billy Higgins is one of the greatest
drummers.
Well, not the greatest. He's the most recorded
drummer
in the world, drummer musician in the world. He's a jazz drummer at that. He's the most recorded. And they decided to open up the World Stage in, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 1989. And this is before I came into the scene. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I met Kamal Daoud that year or the year after and told him I wanted to come and be a part of the writing process and so forth. And at that time I went to see a reading, which it was supposed to have some black arts poets from the 60s. They were supposed to be reading at the World Stage at that time. And the only one I found was Kalamu Yasalam. Kalamu Yasalam is a brother who created a group of poets called Black Art South. And they were a performance art group that traveled through the South nationally. And they did poetry readings. And Kalamu later on created a term called neo-griot, which means that we deal with print, sound, and light.
Wow.
And luckily he was a friend of Kamal Daoud and I met him. But being at the World Stage, he was there at the World Stage, and I had him sign my New Black Voices book from the 1970s. It was an anthology. Wow. And he looked and he said, "Wait a minute, oh, this is old school." He said, where'd you get this book from, brother? And da 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 da. And then Kamal turned around and heard me kick some poem, and he said, "We're gonna have you back, brother." And later on, a about 1993, I came back, and I had just overcame an injury, a tragic injury, but tragic lifestyle at that point.
Right.
But I had just been shot, and I was just recuperating from walking, and I walked in limping with a cast on.
Wow.
And I participated in a workshop around that time, which was 1992.
So would you say poetry saved your life?
Poetry definitely saved my life.
Okay.
Definitely saved my life. Definitely.
Okay, so now since you said that, now we want to hear you do a piece.
Oh.
Because I know you brought something, so.
Yeah, I brought some pieces. We're dealing with a lot of things, a lot of new stuff today, and the stuff that you and I or other writers or from our generation, we're
Right.
supposedly Generation A. Were we Generation X?
I think we were, but now we're not.
There's a new generation out
There's a
there.
new
There's a new
generation.
generation out there, and they're Generation
X to
Y.
the second power or Y, yeah.
Yeah, they're
something.
Generation Y. And this is dedicated to them, and
Okay.
especially when I come in contact with them.
Right.
And I might look young, but I'm definitely not.
Right.
So I have to break it down to them. This is called Old News. When 40 is the new 30, and 30 is the new 20, I guess being of age is the new teen. We must not cease with the elder when the old is a dying breed. We are not players when destiny is too serious. So don't stereotype the pork pie lid. It doesn't mean gangster. It stands as a reminder for fathers. Respect and dignity with pulled up trousers. Doesn't mean I'm some godfather, but I am your guardian angel when need be. Not a deity with a gun and superficial power. Not an OG either. For if it wasn't ancestors that came before me, then we would never be. Legacy is only recognized through self-worth, and it has been proved that youth is wasted on the young. Oh, what wonders a vibrant one has, with new vocabulary and rhyme that spun past. Even hip is old when others hop on. Independent 90s into equal 2K. Feminine power in a black prayers cabinet. What a man know, a woman shows. Multitask while running sass like a fit first lady, as posing is a thing of past. The future is catching up to meaningless womanly virtues. I never thought they would be forgotten. It has turned into rituals, only being shown at prime time, at weddings, only at sweet 16ths, only at proposals, never only at every day, the moment you met. The women we met aren't flippers, rat chicks, not Rack City, no Superman in that hole, not chicken heads. No one knows when ladies first, flowers, going out to dinner, opening the car door, or meeting the family and not expecting, waiting for even a kiss became taboo for the date. It's now hook up, kick it, get high on thizzle, scissor, blaze one, a dub for the dirty, do something strange for change. I don't have to know you to make love to you. This is the one time, get some cut up. 20th century got jiggy with it. 21st is active. Lingo long gone with language. LOL, LMFAO, WTF, OMG, TTYL, DIY, a world of YOLOs and FOMOs. If you ask me what it means, it's just acronyms and excuse for the lazy illiterate and young dumb full of come here to me for me. Face the fact. Conversations are text subtitles for the lack of real and more silence. Customs leave as true home training dies. This is new for Generation Y, while customary traditions become old news.
Wow. Woo, woo.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
You
And
know,
it was very telling.
well, a lot of people don't, they don't, some people ask, what does YOLO mean? Well, you only live once.
Right.
And then what does FOMO mean? Well, it's the fear of missing out. And what I find is this generation nowadays, what they do is they, if you only live once, that means you're going to do anything.
Right.
And if your fear of missing out, that means you're going to miss out on something important. You're going to do something less important to miss out on something important.
Right.
So we have to be careful about that, and we have to remind Generation Y not to be YOLOs and FOMOs.
Right. And we have to keep
The customary traditions
right.
going on.
Exactly. Exactly.
There was a story called "The Custom in the City." I'll probably share that with you later, but I know you have questions for me.
Yes, I have plenty of questions for you. The world stage, and you also perform. So where has poetry taken you? It's taken you across the United States to other countries.
Well, it's taken me halfway across the world at
Okay.
least. I've been to London.
Wow.
I've been to Germany.
Okay.
But I've been all around the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And being all around the United States, what I've noticed is that we're all the same.
Right.
We all have different situations. We all have the same situation. But what I really, really notice is that there's a lack of after-school programs out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lack of enrichment programs out there for the youth.
Okay.
And they're the future. So what I've noticed is that what I would be doing is I would be saving some youth or a group of youth in another state, in another community, halfway across the country. But when I come to LA, I couldn't even get into those realms.
Wow.
So now that was the reason why I created Reading is Poetry, so I can go into the schools.
Right.
Or affect change by working in the after-school programs without using Reading as Poetry, but using the techniques of Reading as Poetry while getting training, because eventually I want to create a center.
Okay.
And the Reading as Poetry Center would be dedicated as an enrichment after-school program, but more so it would encourage more reading and discourage illiteracy.
Right. And so now that you're in the schools, do you see it, like, say, in 5 years? Because I notice most poets, most artists are in education or have something to do with education.
Right.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think we feel it's so important to go back and educate, or to reach out to children and educate?
That's an interesting question. Just as of recent, we had new employees at my job. I'm not going to say where I work. I just work at an elementary school.
Right.
And I work in an after-school program.
Okay.
And lately there's been transitions in that. And I'm one of the original members in the after-school program that's been there. And I've been there I've been in the after-school program for about 5 years, but at this particular site, this particular school, I've been there for 4 years.
Okay.
And we have a lot of transitions, like I said, and most of the original people that I used to work with, they have left and moved on. I'm not there for a paycheck. That's
Right.
number one.
Okay.
I'm there to help the students and to encourage the students to be what they want to be. More so to give them those customary home trainings, because a lot of them don't have it.
Right.
But more importantly, what I found is that we've had some new employees, and there was a young lady. She was about 19, and she comes in, and we were writing our activity plans. I know they hadn't had any activity planning training, so they don't know anything about that. And for me to even write a lesson plan, it's $150 a pop.
Right.
That's with Reading as Poetry.
Right.
But with them, you're getting this low amount of money.
Right.
So it's not a lesson plan, it's an activity plan, which usually lasts about, 30 minutes.
Okay.
The young lady turned to me and asked me, "You spell frame P-H-R-A-M-E, right?" And I said, "It's never been spelled P-H-R-A-M-E. It's all right. It's an F, and it's F-R-A-M-E.
All right.
That is why Reading as Poetry exists. That is why these poets are out there doing what they feel or deem is necessary to help these students,
Right.
to help these people, young people,
Right.
across the board."
Right. Well, we want to thank you so much for coming. It has been a pleasure to sit here and talk to you and find out the inner workings of K Toney, and much success on your reading as poetry and anything else you
Oh,
do.
definitely, definitely. Right now I'm doing some woodshedding, so I'm trying to bust out a novel first time. So, it's the first time for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you told me a little bit about it. I know you don't really want to let people, you want it to come out and then,
Yes,
so we're
yes.
definitely going to
It's
have
gonna
to
be
have
for
you back.
it's young adults, middle school, high
Right.
school. Yeah.
And I'm sure they will get a big kick out of that. I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm not in middle school or high school, but I want to read it myself.
Oh, the elementary school kids want to hear it.
Right.
They're bugging out. They're like, "You got a story you haven't told us." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I know."
Well, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing reading as poetry blossoming and to hearing from you in the future.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that.
This has been Indie Encounter, a journey into the world of the independent creators of art and artistic expression. I want to thank today's guest, K Toney, for sharing his poetic vision and talents with us. If you want to find out more about today's guest, check out his websites, readingispoetry.com, and follow him on Twitter at readingispoetry, all one word.
Also, they can catch us at blogtalkradio.com/onword on Monday nights at 8 p.m. And that's the Reading is Poetry Review, and that's our radio show.
Okay, audience, you heard that. Check out the website here at pasadenamedia.org and select the Arroyo channel. You can also catch the live feed of the Arroyo channel on YouTube. Thanks to our director, Lilia Fernandez Gaspar, and our crew for making the show possible. Thanks to all of you. We hope to see you here again when we embark on another Indie Encounter.